I lived in Bali, Indonesia for 2 years. I was out in the surf, got swept out, no surfboard, and there's no lifeguards. A lot of Japanese will drown in Bali because no lifeguards. And I was swept out to sea. And the waves were coming and crashing over me, and this is not too many years ago, and I was exhausted. I was totally exhausted. I must have been, I think, a mile off the beach. I was way out there. And I thought I was going to drown. I thought, well, my mom and dad have passed away, my wife's passed away, it's time for me to go. So I was set to drown, and I just said, okay, God, I guess this is it. Take me. And I prayed. And then I started to negotiate. Well, I'll do a better job if you let me get back to shore, you know. But meanwhile, I'm drowning. I mean, there was just no way I could get in. I was gurgling and going down. And then I started to yell for help. And I was looking out to sea. I wasn't looking to the shore. And I was like, help, help. You know, nobody could hear me on shore. And lo and behold, a voice came. I mean, this is as clear as anything. Hold on, I'm coming. I mean, what was that? And, you know, there's people talking about seeing the light and the whole thing. Next thing I know, I was saved. Later I was told about this. A water polo player from San Francisco saw me from the shore, swam out, grabbed me, pulled me back, brought me on shore, and saved my life. I mean, it was totally, to me, it was a miracle. To me, it was an angel. It was something. And like the next day or two, I just got off the island of Bali, came home, and there's something greater purpose for my life.
First date, actually, yeah, it was very romantic and kind of interesting. We were working in the same place, and I was actually then going out with another fellow who was giving me a very hard time. I was sort of heartbroken over the situation. This young man who wanted to date me offered to give me a ride home because where the work was located, it was very hard. You had to get a ride up to the subway. And long story short, he took me all the way down to visit my mom, which is where I was headed. And when we got there, I told him, this is the building. He didn't stop. He kept going. And he just drove around the building, and I said, stop. And he said, I'm not stopping. I'm not letting you off until you say you'll go out with me. So he did that for a couple of times, and finally I said, okay, okay. And that's where we had it wasn't our first date, but it was the introduction to what turned out to be a very wonderful experience.
When I used to model for Kodak, I was 15, 16 years old. I was the girl, the stand-up cutout, now that they make them a movie, the stand-up cut-ups at the film store, when they used to have film, that you'd buy with the girl sitting there in cute little cut-offs and a shirt hat. I was that girl saying, hi, buy Kodak film. I had a 60-foot billboard in Grand Central Station, New York, of me running on the beach in a bikini with a bunch of other pasty white, then 70s-looking California people. But it wasn't like what you would see now running on the beach. It would be all these muscular bodies. They were just real bodies.
Surfing is unlike other sports. It's not man against man or man against nature like skiing. It's man with nature, and it's a beautiful thing. I witnessed one of my son's first wave, and I was fumbling around with a camera all day trying to get some, and he paddles kind of slow. So this one wave, it's just kind of peaked right behind him, lifted him up. He stood up and rode, and I'm trying to get the camera, and I didn't get it in time. And he said afterwards, Dad, I feel like surfing is the only thing I want to do for the rest of my life. He says, I caught this wave, and someone was encouraging me, paddle faster, paddle faster. And he said, Dad, I caught the wave, and I turned. And I could see that excitement in him, and that's a great thing.
Next thing, I get this call from a lady down Balboa Island, Orange County, saying, would you be a flamenco dancer? I said, yeah, okay. And I haven't danced flamenco for years. So I showed up with my old flamenco boots and came out there and I thought maybe it was an extra, and all of a sudden I'm up there on the stage. There's extras all around. There's two men, I'm one of them, and I became the male lead dancer. There's 5 beautiful women, and dancing with Dustin Hoffman. And my feet are famous. I have the world's fastest feet, dancing as the foot double. Dustin Hoffman. He couldn't get his heels going as fast as my heels. So, anyway, that's it. That's a little taste.
My brother, Bill Robinson, worked with Walt Disney. And Walt Disney would say, hey, you guys, can you make a statue of Abraham Lincoln stand up and turn his head? They go, sure. He says, okay, why don't you guys do it? He worked for Mapo. And as they're leaving, they say, Bill, how are we going to do that? He says, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. And my brother he was electrician in the Navy. He learned his trade there. And he had a meeting with all the bigwigs at Disney. Walt Disney was there, and his boss says, hook that thing up. He says, no. He says, hook it up. He says, no, it'll explode. You did something this, and no, I'm not going to do it because it will explode. He says, I'll do it myself. And, you know, it's kind of, people could hear them kind of arguing. So he plugged it in, and this thing exploded. And then Walt Disney came back behind him. He says, Bill, is that what you told him was going to happen if you plugged in? He says, yes, sir. Next week later, my brother Bill was in charge of, you know, the electrical department. So when there's someone with an idea, and there's always someone who can do it, and that's exciting. It's exciting.
On December the 27th, 1981, I was beside my home in Irvine, California, but I had a bottle of vodka in the woodpile. I looked at the house, thought to myself, the moment of clarity was, I should not be doing this. This is not the way someone should be acting. The next day, Monday, I was working in labor relations up in Los Angeles. And after lunch, after I'd had a couple of drinks with some business managers from the local union, I went back to my office and went into the office of a friend who worked there and I knew was a recovered alcoholic. And I told him, I said, I can't take it anymore. And I sat down and just started to cry. And he said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. The next day he got me all the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I haven't had a drink since. But I was, you know, I was a mess, as they say, you know, spiritually, physically, mentally, psychologically. I was broken. I was on my knees. I couldn't take it anymore.
When I was 8 years old, I was busy helping washing the dishes, and my mother says, come on in, your father and I need to talk to you. And they sat us down and told us they were getting divorced. I felt like my leg had been cut off. I mean, not at that moment. My sister's 2 years older, and I thought, oh, I have to be strong. So I was strong, little 8-year-old, and she was bawling her head off. But subsequent to that, it had a profound effect in my life. The neighborhood kids would say, oh, are your parents getting divorced? Hey, did you see the baseball game yesterday? I couldn't even confront it. I felt as if there was a piece of my body. It's like there's something wrong with me because I don't have two parents at home anymore. That was a significant event.
When you consider how life unfolds for each of us, you know, things that don't go your way and you get upset about it, but later you realize, hey, that was necessary. That brought me to where I am now. So you tend to fight things and resist things, but really the answer seems to be just go along with it. There's some kind of plan for us, I think.
The worst part of my whole career was the day they gave me a pager. They said, a pager? You mean they beep, beep, you know, and they could find you. We used to be able to go on a cruise and go for 7 days, 14 days, and forget life and rest. And in today's world, you go on a cruise, they have an internet cafe. They have wireless computers.
Oh, my son, he was 41, which was not quite 15 years ago. And he was a very dynamic person. He loved to race cars and airplanes and boats. I mean, he was just a real bombastic kind of a guy. And he had his own planes. And one of his planes, I mean, he was up there and he was supposed to pick his daughter up at school and never showed up. And they found him the next day at the foothill. His plane had crashed. So he was killed in a plane crash. Yeah. That was a hard thing. But, you know, if I can use that as an example of, you know, why I have faith and believe in a higher power. He and I had been estranged for a good long time since his father and I separated. And he was angry with me, just decided for whatever reason that he didn't want relationship with me, which was very heartbreaking for a lot of years. But the year that he passed, before he died, 2 incidents happened that showed me that God was really overseeing and in control of things. And we had 2 opportunities to get together and have conversation and, in a sense, reconcile. We didn't have the time to really, you know, broaden it out, but those 2 occasions just gave me such peace and comfort that I knew, even though he was killed, that there was a reason that he was taken then, and I knew that we were good, we were okay. So I feel that God was very much in our lives and still is.
I owned a department store, 2 restaurants. I had 5 houses, 2 boats. I had everything you could own and a Rolls Royce. And then I had 2 open-end construction loans, 11 million, 13 million. And when the interest rates went to 20%, and I was 8 or 9%, or a couple points over prime floating, I got wiped me out. And we have a lot of people hurting in business today, but that was back in the 80s. So I know what it is to be rich, I know what it is to be broke.
I don't think anybody should get married until they're 30. I really don't. I don't think anybody, unless you're a really early bloomer and mature, I wasn't, and I don't think most of the people I know are. When I got out of school in the 70s, it was kind of the thing you do. You went to college, you got married, or you did this, and you had a family. So I was doing that. So I got married right out of high school, and it was disastrous. I mean, we were both too young, and we both didn't know what we want, and we were both trying to be what it was supposed to be. So that lasted a really long 1.5 years. And then it's like when I got back into theater, again, I just didn't know what I was doing at that age, and then did it again. So I was divorced twice by the ripe old age of 25, and swearing off that I wouldn't do it for a long, long time until I was grown up and knew what I wanted and was doing, and I wanted to really live and enjoy life. Because I was the kind of person that kind of got lost in a relationship anyway, so knowing I have that tendency, it's like, oh, well, don't do it. Live your life, figure out who you are, and things got way better from there.
We're all human, we all make mistakes, and it's important to forgive people. If you hold a grudge against people, it hurts you inside. You can become bitter. Premarital sex ruined both of my marriages, both of them. Doesn't happen with everybody. I think it's really important to have a friend first. I was not really a friend to either one of my wives before. I was just had that physical attraction. So it still hurts. I'm still going through it. It's like someone cuts your guts out and pulls your guts out and goes, woohoo, are these your guts? You know, and you can't put them back in when someone pulls your guts out and starts. So that's the hardest thing.
If I could talk to myself when I was 18, I would just tell myself to, whatever I do, go for it full gusto. I'm not a person with regrets. I don't regret anything I've done. Even the bad and the horrible and the stupid decisions, they're all part of who made me who I am now. The 2 bad marriages made for one really good marriage and knowing what I want and who I am. But I would tell myself, I spent the first probably 30 years still in a box, feeling like I was in a box and not really thinking I was still supposed to be this person, or who am I supposed to, and more worried about what people thought I was supposed to be than what I thought I was. And I would just say, forget that at 18.
I think if you are true to yourself, the hurdle or the obstacle or the barrier is to find that self. But be true to yourself, because I think people have great intuition and are able to find themselves, and they know what they're going to do, but they sometimes don't do that because of peer pressure, which Kurt Vonnegut said is the most powerful force in the universe. But they don't do it because of peer pressure, family pressure, whatever. Is to find that self and pursue that.
I can't sit here and say that you don't want to be successful and make money, but you have to also put it in perspective of what's important in life. Your family's important in life, your faith is important in life, and respecting other people.
Passion conquers anything and everything. If you find what you're passionate about. I mean, some people it comes really easy and you know it, and some people have to look. I had to look and find, and then when it's there, it's a seed, and it grows and it expands and it blows up, and you can do anything. Follow and find your passion.
If you no longer feel useful to society, you don't live that long after that. Do something, make a contribution. There's the takers of the world and the givers of the world. I don't want to be a taker.
What are you going to look back at your life? What's the story of your life? You're writing your book. This is your life. You write it. You design it. Not your parents, not your teachers, not the government. Don't blame anybody. You're starting out. You're 13, you're 15, you're 18. What do you want? Sit down. There was a young guy, I think he was 13, he wrote down 500 things he wanted to do. He wanted to go on the biggest rivers. He wanted to get his medical degree. He wanted to climb the biggest mountains. He wanted to learn French and Spanish. And I'm still creating my life. I'm still a kid at age 64. You create it. You create your life. So the key to life is curiosity. Love it, be grateful. I mean, going around being depressed, I know what it is to be depressed. I know what it is to make money and to lose money. I know what it is to lose everything, to lose the love of your life. You know, we all have trauma, but you got to step over it and you got to move on. And you only got today. So how great are you going to make today? How great are you going to make it? And you're at cause. You don't have to be an effect. You don't have to be a victim. I'm not buying into this victim conversation. Oh, poor me, woe is me, and all that kind of stuff. I better smoke some pot and drink with my buddies because life is terrible. Life is great. It's a gift, and be grateful.